nobody knew that, and the questions weren't answered. We've got this annexation coming up with this rezone. We're going to rezone this property into something that isn't even there. So right now it's zone commercial. On our future land use maps, it's mixed use and business campus. We're going to take all that out, and who's going to make that decision that residential is good there or apartments are good there? This process just feels chaotic to me. And somehow we just need to get this under control. I would like personally to have established guidelines, and those guidelines would be set as to how the process goes. And, you know, I would be happy to jump into that and give you my opinions on that. I mean, most of the stuff I have is posted.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thanks, Mayor Wilson. Trustees, my name is Kane Cotton. I was born here. Parents born here, and my great-granddad moved here. I'm from the family that just helped open the Santa Fe open space. Mike, thanks for coming. It's nice seeing you out there. I'm here to speak against high density everything and monument. It's inappropriate. This is a nice place because of the green, because of the rocks, because of the trees. I know high density wasn't on the agenda today, but we're all watching and we don't want it. I appreciate everyone coming out and changing what Connexus was. What was proposed was gross. What was approved is less so. I would urge you all to take the same tact with high density everything. We can be green here. We can stay a buffer between Colorado Springs and Denver. By doing so, the community will be better. More just creates more burden. It doesn't create improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kimple. Mr. Kimple. Mr. Kimple.
Evening again, Kenneth Kimple, 16151 St. Lawrence Way. I will hit a aspect of town ordinance and a legal recommendation and question about my recommendation of putting a 90-day moratorium on all construction projects and development projects being proposed to the town until a hire is completed and fully briefed up to speed on everything that's involved in our community. The developers aren't going to go anywhere. They're not. You can, another comment, you can hold a workshop without entertaining any other agenda items. You can call for a workshop like you started to talk to tonight. I feel it's not in the best business practice for the town manager to be dual-hatted, to be the planning director and to be the town manager, for two reasons. One, the employee's health. That's a lot of work for him to do, right? He is an awesome guy. Number two, something might be overlooked or missed, plain and simple, in this whole process. Legal question about the town ordinance. Ordinance needs to be reviewed and updated again. Title II of the town ordinance, town manager. Duties. 2 TAC 12 TAC 030 A and B uses the terms control, coordinate, and coordinate planning. It doesn't say anything about making decisions and determining things like it says in the Title 18 Land Development Code, which specifically identifies the director of planning actions and what he or she is supposed to be doing, what they're responsible for, and what they're authorized to do when it comes to fees, liens, approvals, recommendations, and so forth. So the language in there might become a legal battle if something goes awry with having consultants presenting something that the developers don't like or the residents don't like. So I would recommend making some changes to the language to incorporate potentially having the town manager under the duties fall back on being allowed to make those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like, would, ma'am?
Low podium again. Brandy Turner, I did call for a moratorium. That was me. And when I came into this meeting and listened to you guys talk at the beginning, we talked about dates, timeframes, how this got pushed to here, this got pushed to here. And I thought, okay, that makes sense. What we're doing just out of general practice is going to get us there. And I don't feel so confident anymore. I've worked with Mike a lot over the past year, and I really have a lot of respect for him. I've talked to a bunch of people on the board multiple times, and I really have a lot of respect for you guys. My gut says it's just too much, and I don't have the same confidence I did after that discussion as the meeting went on. So I do appreciate everything that's being done. It's not my gut feeling that it's right.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Sharon Stratton. I just want to say that all the building of homes that's being done in Monument, are you all taking into consideration how many new children are going to be in the area? What about schools? Are the developers and the builders going to put anything towards that? I mean, they should. What about sports facilities for these kids? Because the denser an area gets, the more crime you're going to have unless you have something for these kids to do. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Koopman?
Greg Koopman, longtime resident, former trustee. You know, I served on this board with several of you. Several of you also served with a fantastic trustee, public servant, Colonel Denny Murphy. If you recall, Denny Murphy, during our time on the board, said multiple times that the appearance of impropriety can oftentimes be worse than the impropriety itself. The appearance of impropriety can oftentimes be worse than the impropriety itself. Think about that. More than 150 residents took time out of their Monday morning to come here tonight, many more online. Personally, I think the discussion lacked passion. I think it lacked interest, and it felt like we were simply going through motions. Nobody on this board tonight asked about the potential liability and repercussions if we get this wrong. What waiver of risk and liability did we agree to in a third-party contract? What happens if we get this wrong? Nobody asked what layers of protection that the people have and how we are all going to be informed and reassured that everything is exactly how it is supposed to be. You have a lot of work to do. Tonight was not good enough. Why? Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment? Okay, Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone online that would like to make public?
Excuse me, Nate Lenz, Corporate Counsel for Classic Homes.
Okay.
First, I'd like to commend Mr. Rivera. I think he did a good job of succinctly putting into for the board what the scope and criteria for a moratoria in any form or fashion would look like. Again, I would stress that if this is a continued conversation, and to lean on what Mr. Rivera said. A moratorium in Monument is completely inappropriate for this town at the moment. To use some of our projects as an example, Monument Junction, to move back in history, zoning and sketch plan approval in June of 20. On top of that, all pending plans after that within our project have been reviewed by staff, out to referral agencies, and overseen by people that have been in this process since 2020. On the west side, we have a plat approved. On the east side, we have a PUD, one plat approved, and more plats coming. As Mr. Rivera pointed out, which he hadn't really delved into too much, is the economic impact to the developers that have sunk time, resources, and effort into this. Mr. King, we would gladly meet with you. Mr. Stemple has received multiple messages from you. He's responded to you. Just like Connexus, Classic Homes would be more than willing to meet with you and your constituents to understand what you would really like to accomplish other than just anti-growth. So again, the economic impact of a moratorium on the developers, it should not be understated. To further our point, within the Monument Junction project, we've spent $7 million on water. We're on the hook with Woodmore to continue to buy water from them. We've sold 2 sites, one being a multifamily site in Monument Junction, and another being to a developer who will have a Maverick convenience store there. That is coming in the future as well. They have multi-million-dollar financing to complete these projects, and they've been going through this whole process with the understanding of this will generate sales tax for the town of Monument. It will benefit Monument, and developers will pay their way along this development. For example, for us, we've already paid for traffic studies. We're going to contribute more than our fair share on Jackson Creek Parkway. So to say that any high density, any development is not on the backs of developers is just incorrect. That's what we as good neighbors within Monument have been doing. I would again stress that if there is going to be any more conversation about a moratorium, please rely on Mr. Rivera to understand what the implications are. And I guarantee you, if it is hastily done, there will be a challenge and it will be reviewed.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody online that would like to make public comment? Okay, Ginger, if you would like to speak, please unmute and go ahead.
Hi. So earlier I was the citizen who stated the 14% parking, and that was directly from a meeting last week. A little disappointed that the applicant nor any of the trustees who were in that meeting and spoke about that remembered. So I love the idea of the project, but I just think that's a perfect example. There was no meeting notes or minutes to refer to, that we all just slow down, take our time with decisions, have the packets before making decisions, votes, etc. Because I think everybody really has good interests in mind, but I think we all just need to kind of slow down and really think through everything. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, are you moving up ours? Okay, Mr. Ours, would you like to unmute and make your public comment?
I'm speaking now as citizen hours. I know from personal experience and my past business endeavors that people such as Mike Foreman can make some very comprehensive and very good decisions based on information that he gets from consultants and others. And I also know from personal personal that you have a very fine planning commission, and that there are a couple projects, 2 of which were postponed tonight, that need to come before you, whatever you decide to do on a moratorium, that those projects have had basic approval by the previous planning personnel. They will come before the planning commission, and I happen to know from personal experience that your planning commission is a very, very good planning commission that planning commission will ask the proper questions and will make the appropriate recommendations to you. So as you make your suggestions or you consider a moratorium, consider the existing projects that have been through the planning department so that you do not hurt the developers that going forward need to decide how they can use the land that has had some planning department approvals. There will be, I'll guarantee you, some controversy based on my personal experience about some of that, but be very cautious. As a citizen, I recommend you when you look at making the moratorium. That's the end of my comments.
Okay, thank you. This time we'll close public comments and move on. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not see that. Okay. Jasmine, if you would like to make public comment, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hello. I just would like to ask, have any of you, the trustees and the mayor, have read the latest Colorado Water Conservation Board's report that came out in June of this year? If you haven't, I would urge you to read it. It has some very, very disturbing numbers on the water of Colorado. And with all the building that we're doing, I'm just wondering how all this is going to turn out. Taking into consideration that the economy for Colorado is farming. That was my point I would like to make. The second, two other things I'd like to say is thank you to Haley for Tri-Lakes for all the hard work that they do for the community. And also for the Trinity Church playground project that was put in. Excellent idea. And thank you for that.
Thank you. This time we'll move on to board authorization items. We have the cancellation of October 3rd meeting. Any comments or questions on that item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move forward with that. And that takes us to item 10, Board of Trustee comments. Is there any Board of Trustee comments at this time?
Yes.
Trustee Shaning? Sorry, Sarah first.
I wanted to bring something up that I have in regular talks with my constituents, and a topic that's coming up all over social media all the time. And that is, as the last public commenter just talked about water. I'm not a water expert, so I'm not going to sit up here and talk about things that I haven't gone to school to study for 20 years. But we have water restrictions in place until September 30th. And while I am all for conservation, what I don't understand is how we say on one hand that we are going to restrict our current residents' water, but then we're going to move 10,000 more people here. And so I just want an answer at some point as to how those two things can simultaneously happen. So ideally, what I would like to see is that if we're going to put water restrictions in place, I would like to see that come before the board so that the people who are water experts need to come here and explain to the public why those restrictions exist. If there's plenty of water, then we shouldn't have restrictions. And if there's not plenty of water, then we shouldn't be building high density housing. So my comment, I will leave it at, I would like to see water restrictions come before the board from now on.
Mr. Foreman, do we have any water restrictions?
We do have water restrictions. We always have water restrictions. We do that for conservation efforts so that we continue to have water. And to your point, you got to remember in this area, we have 5 different water districts, and so actually more than that. But we only serve a certain portion of our town, and so we only control the water in that portion of our town. And so for us, when we have water restrictions, they don't always affect Triview, they don't affect Woodmore, they don't affect Forest Lakes, Palmer Lake, or any of the other surrounding districts around us. They just affect our water service area. And so our concerns are only in our water service area. But we do control planning for all the other areas.
Right.
So
and
that's where some people get confused, is that we control planning for Triview and Monument, but we don't control the water source that they get their water from or how much the water they get. That's their responsibility.
Definitely. And I understand how those all interact. I guess in an ideal situation, every year before summer, we should have a talk about that before the public so that the public understands.
We do put out brochures and we put it in our water bill every year.
But that doesn't, I mean, that doesn't explain how or why we're doing the things that we're doing.
We do a pretty good job of education on water conservation,
Okay, well,
if you haven't seen it.
to me, we don't, because I haven't talked to anybody in my duties as trustee that understands it, and I still don't
Do you-
understand it.
So you probably don't get the message that we send out because you live
I
on
live
the
in
other side.
Triview.
Yeah.
And there are restrictions over there at times too. So I'm not trying to say that this all falls on the town. Ideally, we would get Triview in here too, to say, okay, here's what we're doing and why. And if it's purely a conservation effort, then that makes sense to me. But I believe that that needs to be explained in a public manner, how these all interact and what exactly we're trying to accomplish here with these restrictions.
And we can do that. And I'll remind you that we just had a meeting between both boards and
Mhm.
we made presentations to both boards about our water plans for the future.
Yes. It still doesn't explain the restriction. It just, and maybe
We
it's
can-
just,
we
maybe
can
it's just
further-
me and the people that I talk to, that could very well be the case. But I feel like if so many people have these concerns, then it's something that we should probably address. It just seems like two things are going on that contradict each other. So there's probably a better explanation that we need to present.
Okay. We just haven't received any of those complaints that you're receiving. So, but definitely could address them if you'll give us that information.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Just to add on to that, a water schedule, I've never considered a restriction, because I think every community has a water schedule, and that is so that, people aren't leaving their water on all day. It's to control the time. So my apologies for asking if we had a restriction. I've never looked at that as a restriction. It's been in every community I've lived in.
But if there's 500 years of water, like the water experts are saying, it shouldn't matter if I want to water my grass every day.
To us, it does. Because
And-
we want to ensure, and plus it's different at different times. You got to remember, when we get in the high summer months and we have high heat and everybody's watering, then that puts a load on our water consumption and puts a load on what we can supply at the time. And then there's times like right now, we're building a brand new water tank. And once we get that water tank up, and I think for the last 7 or 8 years, we've had problems with the existing water tank. And so that's why we provided a plan to build a brand new water tank. As soon as we get that one built, we'll start replacing the existing water tank so that we can have 2 water tanks that conserve more, provide more water for the community,
But we're conserving water
so that we can
for our
provide for our
existing
future
residents. Future what? Future people that,
needs, for the future needs of this community.
I think it's not just about the water that we have in the ground. It's about how much water can we deliver to the people
Yeah.
through the current infrastructure. So we're talking about pipes and tanks and everything, which we're trying to expand. And I think that's why we've been restricted.
Yep.
so when we go to a new water delivery system, are we thinking about lifting those restrictions?
That's a discussion we can have with the board, definitely, if you want to, but I think always in Colorado especially, you would want, these are the lowest, we have the lowest restrictions right now than we ever have. Now, when we get in the summer months and we see that there's a high usage and we have low ability to provide them with that usage, we're going to put more stricter restrictions on that.
So
So
then
it's
what
all
about
based
when
on-
the population is increased by 100% 5 years from now. Are those people gonna not be able to water their grass at all? I'm just lost in
that's-
where this.
That's
But
why
you're
we're planning
asking-
to bring more water to Monument.
And I think you're also asking, I mean, very little development is going in actually Monuments Water District, which is the only one Mike can speak for. So that wouldn't be a question for us. It would be for Triview or Woodmore,
Even the new development.
Lakes.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you.
But I think there could be discussion on it and
Yeah.
clarification. Other Board of Trustee comments?
Yes. I take a lot of notes. We had a lot of residents coming in and speaking their minds today. We had Steve coming in and talking about his concerns, Mr. King. We had Kim coming in and talking about how he believes we should follow the plan of the town. We had John Kona talking about his concerns. We had Terry Hayes talking about why she wanted something to be approved. We had a lot of residents speaking their minds here, and every single one of them was incredibly respectful. And then we had a developer come in here, and I think it's so incredibly off base that we had the one person that was rude and threatening was the developer. You made it seem like every person that spoke, who spoke incredibly well and politely, you made their concerns seem completely invalid. And you also threatened the town at the end. I think it's wildly off base, especially considering we had 20 or 30 residents speaking who are angry. Whether you think it's correct or not, they're angry, and they were incredibly polite and respectful to you, to us, to everybody. The one person that spoke that was rude and threatening was you, and that is wildly off base. And I just want to remind you that that's not acceptable here. Thank you.
Any other Board of Trustee comments? Okay, moving on to, we have an executive session. Mr. Stevens, do you have a motion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to enter an executive session. I move to enter into the session pursuant to CRS 246402-4B and 4E to discuss the status of the title of Monument Hill Tank Site and to develop negotiation strategy, instruct negotiators, and receive legal advice regarding the same. I further move that we adjourn the board meeting at the conclusion of the executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Trustee Romanella?
Yes.
Trustee Shaney?
Yes.
Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee LeKind?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott?
Yes.
Trustee Stevens?
Yes.
Trustee Ramos?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, we'll take a 5-minute recess and return for executive session.
Yeah, I mean, the public doesn't.
Staying here, like they're not coming back.
Correct.
It's
Yes.
gonna end the recording.
Okay.
The recording and the meeting.
Perfect. Well, except for you'll need to somehow be able to display the things on the screen.
Hey,
Oh, but that's it. That's separate. Okay, yes. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Drew. Thank you.